Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And with 9.1.5's update, Marksmanship Hunter has come back from the dead, and I would recommend giving it a shot. It pumps out a tremendous amount of damage, and I picked up Base Sitter X here from my stream. I'm doing viewer games on twitch.tv/Supatease every day, so if you'd like to join, push up your rating, or just get some games in with somebody, perhaps you're struggling to find some partners, you can find me there every day at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And boy, is this a fun comp for a druid to specifically heal, especially with the feral affinity talent. You're going to feel more like a feral druid than a resto druid, bouncing between defense and offense, trying to protect your hunter, but then set up their freezing traps. This is going to be a really fun composition for you as a druid, but also a really fun composition as a hunter, because the druid's going to be doing a lot of the hard work for you and assisting you in some of the weaknesses that marksmanship currently has, which is being quite fragile. If they get locked down and bursted heavily, then you're going to struggle to heal them. So you've got to really focus on protecting them and allowing them to access their massive damage. Most notably in this game, we're going to be highlighting the Kyrian Covenant for the Marksmanship Hunter. That resonating arrow, man, is so fun. It makes me want to play a marksmanship hunter. Just that single ability alone, the ability to drop that circle down on the ground, pew 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 through the pillar, just zap somebody with it. Marksmanship has definitely come back in terms of power in this patch. And right here with the game starting, my major goal again is to try and set up freezing traps for my warrior. With Feral Affinity, I can use that by generating combo points. If you're trying to generate combo points and not do damage, recommend using Rake instead of Shred. This is going to allow you to generate the most amount of combo points, but when I go for my bash, this is when your hunter's going to want to trap. Unfortunately, their warrior knows when our hunter's a threat. Using his intimidating shout during the resonating arrow, that blue circle on the ground, means that our setup is basically gone, and now I need to start focusing on defense. I see that the warriors used all of their cooldowns. They're glowing green, they're Necro Lord, they've popped Avatar, we can see that on the Omnibar, they pop Colossus Smash. So using my medallion in this position, Ironbark Cenarian Ward, and then extending all those Hot Swift Swiftmen is going to be the best response. As soon as I've traded cooldowns, I try to get back into cap form, but still might want to respect them, especially if it's a Necro Lord warrior. During their cooldowns, they are going to be maybe 3 times as scary as the average warrior, but as soon as these cooldowns are over, it's going to become a lot more docile. So I'm going to use Rake here to get up to 5 combo points, which is going to set me up to stun their druid, which then my hunter can use Freezing Trap to get out of the stun. And then I can perhaps go aggressively or try to look for cyclones if the trap doesn't land. So in this position, trap wasn't available. We were playing with no voice, but this is what you'd want to look out for. I think I actually realized this after the stun, that I need to track my hunter's freezing trap on Omni CD, which is another great add-on. 100% recommend downloading add-ons before you play, because that's going to just let me see, oh, my hunter doesn't have freezing trap for 6 more seconds. Probably want to hold my stun if I'm playing with no voice. You can see once this warrior starts getting some uptime, things start to get scary. Aspect of the Turtle is going to have to be traded, and this is more or less because we haven't been securing our crowd control chains to keep the enemy team on the defensive. So I'm just waiting here. Bash is coming up in 14 seconds. I think that my hunter perhaps tries to go for a freezing trap here. I do recommend waiting until the freezing traps are guaranteed, whether it's out of a stun or out of a root on a healer that isn't able to escape a root, rather than just kind of going for the traps willy-nilly, because it's very important that you line up crowd control and you line up burst damage with the marksmanship hunter when they're getting pressured. So I get combo points, I jump to the healer, I stun the healer, I vortex the warrior so the warrior can't leap or get away and try and eat the freezing trap. So using Ursul's Vortex to prevent the enemy partners from soaking that crowd control is a great usage of that spell. And then we pop down the resonating arrow. Warrior has died by the sword. Probably not going to be killing through that defensive cooldown. Although I should have been in a better position at this moment in time. Cyclone out of freezing trap is going to want to be the chain that you go for. So stun, trap, cyclone. You can already see that's like almost 20 seconds of crowd control. So if you've got this all polished up and you want to take on a different challenge in 2v2, maybe even potentially 3v3, would recommend picking up a marksmanship hunter, pairing it with a restoration druid, and trying to coordinate that crowd control chain for going for massive burst damage. It's very reminiscent to the KFC days, which was kind of the warrior hunter days, where they would just be blasting down a target. Would really like to see compositions like that come back from the dead. It's been a while since we've seen them. We saw buffs as well to the Unholy Death Knight, seeing a little bit more of them, but marksmanship is bringing the punch, which is very important in the current meta. Here, we've got stun, so we're going to jump to the druid, stun the druid. This is going to allow the warrior to go for a freezing trap. Could use Bear Form Wild Charge to root the warrior. Warrior knows that he's in trouble because his healer's in a freezing trap, uses that intimidating shout. Unfortunately, it ends up breaking, so I can just use Iron Bark on the avatar here. And then I want to extend my Cenarian Ward with Swiftman, but I also want to clone out of the trap to continue the chain as long as possible. This is going to let the heal over time effects fall off of the warrior, which means the druid's going to have to spend a lot of globals or a lot of mana on overgrowth to recover. While the druid's cycloned, I can either go cat form attack the warrior, or I can just drop roots on the warrior to prevent the warrior from connecting so that my hunter can just lay down arrows from the backline as he is. After the crowd control chain's over, you can do something really nasty like this, which is cyclone the target you were attacking at low health, and then just reset your diminishing returns while the target can't recover and can't be healed in the cyclone, buying you time to then go for another stun immediately off diminishing return. So you can almost kind of perpetuate an infinity chain of crowd control if you're able to bounce those two back to back, which is why you can see this is so effective. Now, unfortunately, we got MVP Kevin, the slime over here, eating this freezing trap for crowd control. Definitely as a hunter player, if you're going to pick up hunter, you need to work on your aim. If you have the most precise freezing trap aim, then you're going to be one of the most desirable hunters. And there's a lot of random pets that can get summoned at any time at the moment, so you really want to focus on improving your aim. I also like using the scatter shot on warrior into Cyclone. I think that's a good chain to peel the cooldowns of the warrior. Here we can see the Necrolord banner is up at 4 seconds. This is, again, one of the scariest times against an arms warrior that's coordinating those cooldowns together with Warbreaker or together with Avatar. When those are all up, you need to be focusing on defense, but I'm looking for it to build up combo points. I want to be able to get a stun. I decided to stun the warrior this time around just because I'm trying to peel for my hunter during the banner, trying to get him some distance, just using roots as much as possible to give him space. And because we've used the trap, unfortunately, before the stun here, we tried to snipe the druid. He jumped away from it. Now we won't have the freezing trap. We can do a bash into a cyclone, though. It's not as effective. Again, remember, we're playing with no voice. These are some viewer games. I just thought that this comp was actually a lot of fun, even despite that, playing with no voice, just picking up somebody straight from LFG and going for it. This was a lot of fun, especially a nice break from kind of the more standard comps, like the Warrior Druid that we're fighting at the moment, or even the BM Hunter Druid. The marksmanship is a lot more delicate. You need to be more precise, but that also makes it a lot more fun to play with as well if you're interested in that type of play style. And then once you've got it nailed down, you're really going to start crushing. Now here I've committed stuns to the warrior to just get distance from my hunter. I just want to be using Maim basically off of cooldown on any target that I can. And then using it when freezing trap is up, obviously onto the druid as it is available, because it would be the best allocation. But if it's not, then I want to get the next Maim onto the warrior as soon as possible. That's why I say use Rake instead of Shred, because Rake costs less energy and it gets you the same amount of combo points, which is going to get you to more Maims and min-max your Maim uptime a lot more, which is very important as the Feral Affinity Druid. They've also changed Thorns in this patch. You almost really don't want to ever run it. This is maybe the one case where it is pretty good. They've changed it so that Thorns won't reflect damage unless the druid that pressed it is within 10 yards of the target, which means if I Thorns my hunter here, I need to be 10 yards next to the hunter for Thorns to do damage to the warrior. If I'm 10 yards from the hunter, warrior's probably hitting me and not the hunter with Thorns, right? So you may really want to notice that with druid, or if you're playing with a druid, you might want to mention it to them, because Thorns lost a huge amount of value in this patch. It might be the biggest change that nobody noticed. So you really want to pay attention to that. But now you can see this game has been going on for some time, mostly because the crowd control hasn't been executed perfectly. Again, it was our first games. We're playing from LFG, but even still, I think we were able to manage to pull this one through. Bash is coming off cooldown, so I'm monitoring the situation. I'm going to bash the warrior because freezing trap isn't coming up for 5 seconds. This is to buy time for my hunter to recover. Again, in twos, dampening starts immediately, so things become pretty heavy pretty quickly, and your marksmanship hunter is still quite fragile to try and heal. Now with the druid getting aggressive, I want to cyclone the druid away, use Thorns, but now I need to be within 10 yards. So I go cat form onto the warrior. This is now triggering Thorns to actually activate. Big change in this patch. So I'm going to use my combo points on a rip now out of that cyclone to try and add some extra damage with my warrior, because the trap was already landed. And I'm just going to try and control the druid as much as I can here. More clones, more clones, more clones. And for some reason, I think this warrior is just a warrior that refuses to die. This is when you'd want to switch the clone to the warrior if you're able to prevent their recovery. But the warrior is going to use Pummel, stop me from casting. So then I go for a Maim stun onto the druid. The stun diminishing return is over. Don't really care about chaining it into a trap. Dampening is high. They've already used Iron Bark, dab of the sword. They're on 10%. They're just running for their life at this point, which is perfect as a hunter player. you're just having a field day at this point. So just going for Cyclones, even if they're only at 1 second duration, and then switching it over to the Warrior. Now this poor Warrior is just sitting here like, well, I'm Cycloned at 27%. Their Druid makes a smart play here using Fleshcraft to immune the CC swap to themselves there. So that was a nice play on his part to avoid incoming crowd control. But eventually that Fleshcraft is going to fade. And I managed to just get a cheeky re-stealth. I'm going to wait for diminishing return. Really good idea to always look for re-stealths as Feral Affinity because it gives you a stun. I ended up getting pulled out of stealth though by a dot. So make sure the dots aren't on you or you have a shield that's going to protect you at least for a little bit. Here we drop the Resonating Arrow. I'm going to use Cenarian Ward on the remainder of the Warbreaker, as well as the Necrolord banner, and try and get the beefy heals out, get some combo points here, because the next stun trap could be the game, so I want to get these combo points as fast as possible. Don't always need 5. I think going for 4 in this situation is going to be fine. An extra second isn't going to make the absolute difference. I like that my Hunter used Scatter on the Warrior here to stop the Warrior from getting close to the Druid. To secure the freezing trap onto themselves rather than the Druid getting it. Now I'm in position. You always want to try and Cyclone out of the freezing trap, get the really long crowd control, and then as soon as you've gotten the crowd control, go into cap form, get aggressive on the Warrior, stun the Warrior, root the Warrior. If you're focused on protecting, I'm protecting in this position because Colossus Smash is active, and that is a very scary cooldown. You want to make sure that that Warbreaker is dealt with crowd control as much as possible, or a cooldown of your own. And then I go for Thorns, and I need to make sure that I'm getting close to my Hunter. Otherwise, Thorns won't redirect damage. But now that I am, it is redirecting damage to the Warrior, and we've really got to win this game. I can't believe it didn't end at this point. I thought that it already had ended at this point multiple times with how close we were. But I want to generate combo points for the next freezing trap. It's available, so I'm probably only going to go up to 4 here. I'm starved on energy, and then just go for Maim. And then try and go after the Warrior, get Moonfire up. Once the freezing trap is secured, using Adaptive Swarm aggressively is also a good idea. It's going to add to your extra damage on your bleeds here and give you a little extra damage on your Moonfire as well if you have it. Now I want to be in position to cycle into the freezing trap. You can see that this Warrior is not having too good of a time. Their Druid's crowd controlled throughout all of this. The heal over time effects are starting to fall off, and that's a super effective strategy against a Druid, is crowd controlling them so heavily that all their hots fall off, because dealing damage through the hots is borderline impossible. But then once you've got them, you know, against the ropes in the same position, I feel like we just saw 2 minutes ago, where they're just running for their lives. I'm just building up combo points, waiting for the stun DR, and then as soon as Maim's off DR, I want to go for another full stun onto the Druid, maximizing the usage of Maim. Very important. I think a lot of Druids focus too much on damage with Rip and Ferocious Bite. I think it's way more value to just be getting these Maim stuns out and getting extra crowd control onto healers, especially Druids with how high burst damage is. You can put a team behind pretty quickly. And you can see as Feral Affinity, even after the nerfed Thorns, pretty heavily nerfed, still able to do almost half the damage of the Warrior the Hunter. So it was still a lot of fun for me, at least personally. Would 100% recommend it if you're somebody interested in Feral Affinity play, or you're someone interested in Marksmanship Hunter, picking up these specs, putting them together and playing them in this aggressive precision crowd control based strategy way, because it's very fun and very effective at the moment in the patch. If you're looking for something new, to give it a go. And thanks to all the new catch-up stuff, you can actually give it a go. Other than that, if you'd like to give it a go and hit that subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate it. This helps me boost up my channel so I can keep uploading content for you to consume, and then trying to focus on getting content out there that will improve your experience for World of Warcraft. So I hope that this video did. Hope you learned something, or hope it intrigued you in some way. And other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. I will see you in the next one.